More revelations from Prince Harry prompting backlash from veterans and the Taliban. He's given more details about his fight with his brother, but it's the prince's claims about killing 25 Taliban fighters that's caused controversy from his own military family.
I know he's had his differences with the royal family, but not with the British Army family, who I think have held him in high regard. But I think they will look at this as being a little bit, I would say, a bit of a betrayal of the military family.
We'll have all the latest on the reaction to the revelations from Prince Harry's book ahead of that big interview this weekend. Also tonight, we're at Chesterfield Royal Hospital as the flu and COVID combo leads to even more pressure on the NHS. A legend to all of football, tributes paid to ex-Chelsea player and manager Gianluca Viali. And born on different days, in different months, in different years. The twins born on New Year's Eve.
This is the DanTV Evening News with Charlene White.
Good evening. Prince Harry has tonight been accused of betraying the military and fellow veterans after revealing he killed 25 Taliban fighters in Afghanistan. Senior armed forces figures criticised the Duke for turning against his other family. In his new autobiography, Harry describes those he killed as chess pieces taken off the board. The Taliban condemned his comments, saying the victims were humans who had families waiting for their return. It could be the most damaging revelations yet, as our royal editor Chris Shipp reports.
Before the book and all the personal revelations, before Meghan and leaving the royal family, there is one thing Harry was best known for. He was the prince who had fought in Afghanistan. Understandable then why he chose to write in his book about his time there. Less clear is why Harry revealed the number of Taliban fighters he had killed. So my number is 25, he wrote. They were, he said, like chess pieces which needed to be removed from the board. And as many military veterans feared, it prompted a response today from a senior Taliban official. Mr. Harry, wrote Anas Haqqani, the ones you killed were not chess pieces, they were humans. They had families who were waiting for their return. Haqqani went on to accuse Harry of war crimes.
It will be fed into jihadist propaganda to help radicalise and encourage people to join and attack.
There are some Afghanistan veterans today who said Harry, usually a hero of their military community, has gone too far.
I know he's had his differences with the royal family, but not with the British Army family, who I think have held him in high regard. But now I think they will look at this as, I would say, a bit of a betrayal of the military family.
Back to Harry's closest family, in blood terms at least, and we have now heard Harry talk about the moment he claims Prince William attacked him after a heated row.
What was different here was this level of frustration. And I talk about the red mist that I had for so many years, and I saw this red mist in him. He wanted me to hit him back, but I chose not to.
It will sadden many that two brothers once so close now do not speak. And in a US interview, Harry was asked what his mother would have made of it.
I think she'd be sad. I think she'd be looking at it long term, to know that there are certain things that we need to go through to be able to heal the relationship.
You might feel you've heard a lot from Harry, but the full interviews don't go to air until Sunday. Chris Shipp, ITV News.
Well, Prince Harry's frank admissions and provocative accusations are dividing opinion. Some respect him for being so open, others think he's said too much. Well, John Ray heard some of the reaction here and also in the United States.
They were the jolt to the system a modern monarchy needed. In Brixton and beyond, that was the view when Harry brought his bride to be here. 5 years on, almost to the day, some are cheering every salacious detail.
Give us some more, Harry. Give us more revelations, mate. We're on your side and we're supporting you because we want to iron out this thing once and for all.
The joy and the optimism of that day has faded And here, as elsewhere, Harry divides opinion. But whichever side people take, there is real evidence of damage to the royal family.
It's just hurtful. Can't be very nice as far as I'm concerned for William and Charles.
If you want to say something up like that and you want to come out, it's business.
One friend, whose injury in Afghanistan helped inspire Harry's Invictus Games, advises his former comrade in arms to cease fire.
Go and enjoy your life, go and enjoy the money, go relax, relax in the sunset, just chill out. Keep coming back with different stories and stuff. Yes, it's maybe what's happened, but I don't think these stories now do him any favours.
Ahead, a stunning new revelation.
In the country the prince has made his home, he dominates the airwaves. But is he winning the information war?
We loved Harry because of his mother. However, it's almost as if they have hit their tipping point. It's an overshare. It's too much. And we're looking at a man complaining about titles and tiaras. It's really hard to digest.
In Brixton, Harry and Meghan seem to symbolise a diverse royal family fit for the future. Instead, they and we are mired in a bitter past. John Ray, ITV News.
And our royal editor Chris Shipp has joined us in the studio. Chris, what do you make of all of this?
Well, do you know what, Charlene? I remember being in Brixton, where John was just now, when Harry and Meghan were there, and feeling this kind of buzz of excitement and optimism about the difference that they could make in the royal family. And I think, as you just heard, some of that does, yes, still exist. But, I don't think these interviews really are going to move the dial massively. If you support Harry and Meghan after Sunday, and there's the interview to come yet, don't forget, after Sunday, you're either likely to maintain that position, or if you think that it is damaging the royal family, you're likely to feel that even more strongly. I do think, though, on this issue about what he said about the Taliban in Afghanistan, this wasn't Harry answering a question in an interview. This was written in his book. He proactively wrote it. It went through his ghostwriter. It went through his publisher. It went through all those checks and balances, and yet still was published in the way it was. And I think there's some serious questions about exactly why he chose to do that.
Indeed. Chris, thanks very much for that. OK, in other news, 3 people who died in a hotel fire in Scotland early this week have been named by police. Sisters Donna Jans Van Rensburg and Sharon McLean were found dead inside the hotel in Perth, alongside loving father Keith Russell, whose dog was also killed. The cause is still not known. Police in Greater Manchester are searching for a mother and father who went missing with their newborn baby last night. Constance Martin and Mark Gordon were last seen walking towards a motorway bridge with their child after their car broke down near Bolton. The scale of the crisis facing the NHS was underlined today by figures showing a huge jump in COVID infections. Cases across the UK are at their highest level since the summer, just as the country is experiencing its worst flu season for a decade. Our North of England reporter Rachel Townsend was invited into the Chesterfield Royal Hospital to see how staff and patients are coping with the pressure.
Hi, Marie.
Hiya.
Nice to meet you. I'm Ed Harris, one of the chest consultants. How are you feeling?
Marie Chambers has been on the respiratory ward at Chesterfield Royal for a week. She has long COVID and has been told by doctors that she would not survive if she caught the virus again. Being rushed into a packed A&E a week ago caused her great distress.
When I got here, it was absolutely crowded with people coughing. I have never seen it like that before. I thought, all these people coughing, if I pick something up, but luckily I hadn't.
There are 4 times the number of patients on the respiratory wards than there were a month ago. There are no beds left and patients are being moved onto surgical wards.
You worked throughout the COVID pandemic. How does this situation compare?
Even though it was a very challenging time, there seemed to be a lot more bed capacity and staff available to deal with that crisis, whereas here we don't really have that additional stretch. There's no capacity.
Either 11 or 12. 11 or 12, okay.
Chesterfield Royal declared a critical incident just before the new year, with patients being urged to consider all other options before turning up here. But many still come.
With it being over the weekend, That's why I just rung doctor. I thought he might have been able to see me, but obviously you can't do these minor injuries now, so you have to come here.
I've been in here all day. I'm getting tired and I want to go to bed.
The hospital's chief executive says extra hours put in by staff is the reason their A&E department is still functioning. But elsewhere, clinics and routine operations have had to be cancelled, and there are currently 100 inpatients fit enough to be discharged, but with nowhere to go. And those problems cannot be solved anytime soon. Rachel Townsend, ITV News, Chesterfield.
Well, the latest figures from NHS England show there's pressure on nearly every part of the healthcare network. For example, ambulance handover delays hit a record high in the week leading up to New Year's Day, with around 4 in 10 patients waiting at least half an hour, and more than a quarter waiting over an hour to be transferred to A&E teams. In the same period the year before, just 10% of patients waited over an hour. And this could be why. On average, 12,800 beds a day were taken up with patients medically fit to be discharged last week. The year before, it was around a third lower. And hospitals are filling up with flu patients too. There were over 5,000 people with the flu in hospital beds last week. That's more than 1,500 more patients than the week before. Well, our health editor, Emily Morgan, joins us now. Emily, what do these numbers say about the state of NHS England at the moment?
I think, sadly, it just underlines how stretched the whole system is at the moment. I mean, if we just think about those figures that you just read out for a moment, 5,000 flu patients, more than 9,000 COVID patients, all in beds, in wards, in hospitals, along with 13,000 patients who are ready to be discharged but can't because of problems in the community. And, you know, that just sort of underlines the problems that ambulances have trying to offload their patients into A&E. They can't get their patients into A&E because of this bottleneck in the rest of the hospital. And COVID cases are continuing to increase. Flu is likely to continue to increase. So ambulance delays could get worse still. And it's one of the reasons that hospital trusts are having to resort to discharging some patients into hotels so that they can get new patients into A&E. And the government is at least acknowledging that actually, you know, discharge is one of the key problems. And the Prime Minister spoke about it this morning, and this is what he had to say.
In particular, this winter, what we want to do is make sure that we move people out of hospitals into social care, into communities. That's one of the most powerful ways we can ease some of the pressures on A&E departments and ambulances that are waiting too long. If we can move people into social care, that's why we've put money into doing that. We need to make sure that money reaches the front line and makes a difference.
So, yeah, more money is going to trusts and to local authorities to try and solve this social care problem. But people I'm talking to on the ground are saying it's just too late for this winter. It's not going to solve the current crisis right now.
OK, Emily, thanks very much. Well, there's plenty more to come on the ITV Evening News, including a historic change to census data offering fresh insights about the people living in England and Wales. And the passing of a Chelsea and Italy icon. The football world mourns the death of Gianluca Viali. Those stories coming up after the break. Welcome back. Almost 1.5 million people in England and Wales identify as lesbian, gay or bisexual. The figures have been revealed in data from the latest census, which for the first time asked people's sexual orientation and gender identity. It's hoped it will help tackle inequalities and discrimination, as Martha Fairley reports.
It was a law that divided opinion and galvanised the gay rights movement in the 1980s and 90s. Section 28, brought in by Margaret Thatcher's government, prevented local authorities from promoting homosexuality. And in England, it was only repealed 20 years ago. A lot has changed since then. Michael Gunning hid his sexuality for much of his international swimming career, only coming out as gay on a reality TV show in 2018. and being able to register his sexuality in the census 3 years later was an important moment for him.
As an athlete, any forms I had in the past of saying if I'm gay, straight, I always tick the prefer not to say box. But for this census, I ticked gay and I was very proud of that. And, I think finally I'm owning my sexuality, I'm owning who I am. And yeah, it felt nice to kind of tick that box for the first time really in my lifetime.
The census asked 2 new questions. The first, about sexual orientation, was answered by 44.9 million people in England and Wales aged 16 and over. Of those, around 1.5 million people identified with a gay, lesbian, bisexual or other sexual orientation. The second question on gender identity was answered by 45.7 million people, with more than 260,000 saying their gender identity was different from their sex registered at birth.
Our community is twice as likely to have mental health problems as straight people and cis people are. If you've got a lot of LGBTQ+ people in your local authority, then investing in mental health services that meet our needs is something you should absolutely be doing. And this data lets decision makers know that.
And while around 3 million people chose not to answer, this census has finally allowed the LGBTQ+ population to stand up and be counted. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
The talent and achievements of former Chelsea player and manager Gianluca Viali were remembered today after his death at the age of 58. Viali, who'd been undergoing treatment for pancreatic cancer, was the first Italian to manage a top-flight English club. Former teammates paid tribute to his warmth and his gorgeous soul, as Ian Woods reports.
This was Gianluca Viali's greatest moment, lifting the Champions League trophy as captain of Juventus. It was the last chapter of a glittering career in Italy, but a new story was about to be written. He signed for Chelsea, just as they were about to become a major force in European football.
Chelsea signed a world-class superstar who just won the Champions League with Juventus. He was a real icon, one of the greatest strikers of his generation, and he bought into Chelsea so quickly.
Chelsea began winning trophies, but Viali wasn't always guaranteed a place in the side. Despite that, he was elevated to player manager, aged just 33, the first Italian in charge of a Premier League side, and led them to an FA Cup win at Wembley. But like many Chelsea managers, his tenure was brief, and his managerial career never reached the heights he achieved as a player for Juventus and Italy. Early in his career, he was a young teammate of Graham Souness.
He was older than me, Graham, but I had a fantastic relationship. He was really looking after me.
I've only had the news 10 minutes ago, and I can't tell you how good a guy he was. He, forget football for a minute. He was just a gorgeous soul. He was just a truly nice human being.
His last triumph came in a sweet return to London as a member of the coaching staff when Italy beat England in the final of Euro 2020. Viali had already been successfully treated for pancreatic cancer, but when he was diagnosed again, his illness forced him to quit the job just last month.
Gianluca Viali, who's died aged 58. The government has said it will push forward research into new cancer treatments. Health Secretary Steve Barclay has joined with the leading pharmaceutical companies to give patients in England early access to trials which will personalise treatments. And footfall on high streets reached its highest levels since the start of the pandemic in December. There were still fewer shoppers than before 2020, but retailers have welcomed the uplift. Finally tonight, to the newborn twins who have a rare claim to fame. Annie and Effie Scott were delivered safely in Texas, but it was the timing of their births that made them a little bit special, as Danny Stinhar reports.
Meet the twins, who weren't just born on different days, but in different months and in different years. Their mother, Callie Jo, wasn't due for another 2 weeks, but a C-section was necessary after medical checks.
We had kind of joked, like, wouldn't it be funny if, you know, with the holiday and New Year's Eve over the weekend, if they had their own birthdays? And then it turned out that was more of a possibility than we realized.
A new year their parents will never forget. Annie Jo made an appearance at 12:55 on New Year's Eve in 2022. 6 minutes later, Effie Rose came along on New Year's Day in 2023.
I personally love it. I think it's hilarious and just super fun.
Yeah, they each get their own day, their own birthday.
Their own birth year. You always still want to make sure that they have their own individual personality and that they know that they're special and unique.
The Texas twins both weighed 5 pounds 5 ounces and are doing well. But birthdays quite literally will never be the same again. Danny Sinha, ITV News.
Oh, good luck to them. Right, that's it from us. Raggy will be here at the latest time of 10:20 after the FA Cup football. But for me and the Evening News team, enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.